was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
Welcome back to the Hishaku Hideout, a weekly podcast where we talk about the latest chapter and everything Kagurabachi. And today I'd like to welcome back my co-host Dice.
Yo, man, it's good to be back for sure.
My goat returned. And today we're talking about chapter 110. And to start off at the top, I just want to say, Samura, here's your flowers, brother. Like, you really came in clutch. I mean, this man is going above and beyond. He's really gambling on the future. We'll talk about it a little later. But the fact that he's like reverting the life steal the life drain that happened on the people in HQ, he's really putting himself in the ultimate harm's way to save the future and give the everyone a chance to actually take Soga out. And he's a man of his word, so I gotta give him his props. And that's coming from someone like from Hishaku Hideout and me. You could take, that's got to mean something.
You're seething. I know it. I'm
like Arthur, like just clenching my fist.
Before I get into Samura, I just want to shout out Shiny, man. The dude, he didn't just fill in for me. Those were some 2 banger episodes. You guys came in here and did your thing, and it was really fun to enjoy it as a fan and listen to those episodes. So I do want to say thanks and shout out Shiny. Really, he's the man. And
check
really
him out.
appreciative and grateful for him coming in for those 2 episodes. So yeah.
Wait, did you say you're a fan of me? Are you a fan of me or are you a fan of Shiny?
I'm a fan of the pod, man.
Okay. I'll accept that.
Man. It was fun listening to those 2 episodes. Like I said, on the outside looking in. But Samura, there's a lot to get into. He's doing his thing. Honestly, I'm with you, man. He only deserves flowers at this point. Not the Magatsumi flowers, though. He's shutting that shit down. But yeah, man. Where do we even start, right? Like, I guess the heart is a good one to start, right?
Yeah, that or the ultimate death flag of his big-eared daughter showing up on the first page. I gotta throw it straight to offset the love.
Yeah, it's been a minute since we saw her. I do agree with that. Kind of seeing her at the beginning of this chapter did kind of, get me feeling a sort of way. So, yeah.
Yeah, I started tap dancing when I opened up the chapter. Let me stop.
Right after it says Mr. Samura is taking his own life too, and it cuts to Yori. It's like
she's like, huh?
She heard that.
She's like, the hell did you just say? Yeah, I mean, we kind of just like leave. It starts off from where, I know you weren't here the last 2 chapters, but I know you were reading.
Mm-hmm.
Samura healing Chihiro, which it restores N10 not to its like complete state, but to its broken state. At least it's not dust. So it does give him a chance to going forward to get that reforging arc to fuse it with like the tip of Cloud Gouger or whatever. Whichever way Hokuzono decides to go with it, I think that's the logical way, but we don't really have to go into like theories about that. I mean, just it's really like Samura, like we always talk about, I crack a lot of jokes, but objectively, we both said like he is, most likely the most solid written character in the story, and his execution every time he is on panel is there. It's almost like maybe that's why I have an issue with him. It's like he's too good. It's like, all right, we need to take some away from this guy, but but I mean, real shit though. I mean, like we talked a little bit about like the black flames and how it's kind of overriding and it's more output. It surpasses the Magatsumi's power, which is crazy to think because we know what the Magatsumi's capable of. But, like the fact that the second strongest character in the verse is sacrificing his life to do this, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's crazy because it still only makes him like marginally stronger, right? Which is like, quote unquote, the word used to kind of, gauge.
He's not stronger than Soga. It's just his sword is outputting, more spirit energy that's allowing him to just fight against a sword god, or in a have a sword fight against a sword god, which we know he's not. No one's built for that right now against Soga. So I mean, but it's more along the lines of at least he did this knowing that he was gonna die for sure. But we see Azami looking like a flower vase, and it's he's like, we see that the victims are recovering, so it gives Shiba a chance to save everyone. We even see Shiba teleport back down to like get Azami. So it's good to see Azami really put his life on the line just to hold Yura back long enough for Shiba to pull up. Like, Azami didn't win his fights, but he won his objective, so like it's good to see Azami getting saved.
Yeah, we've talked about this. Everybody's done just enough to kind of put each other in this position where like there is a chance for even if it's also slight, for the good guys to come out on top. But we also saw like the same thing from like the perspective of the Hishaku. Everybody was just vying for just like an extra few minutes, and the same thing can be said about Yura. He was able to, and Yukisada, like they were able to get just enough time to have that conversation with Soga, and it's all led up to this moment. And yeah, man, Samura's just doing the unthinkable. We've said this before, but like actually seeing him reverting the power of the Magatsumi, and then we get that one panel which is very reminiscent of when he like put belt to ass on Hirohiko, and we saw him just like in flames, and we got like that pretty dope panel, and we're getting like a very similar one, but this time he's healed his eyes and there's the black flames, and what we get is that Samura is actually applying the full force of his black flames to himself. So I just kind of realized this. I do have to push back on the idea that it's and again, we talked about this and I'm just now catching this. Samura's, if he's applying like it says, if he's applying the black flames to himself, then he himself as a swordsman, he's kind of like closing again that gap versus Soga. And we see it in the following panel. It's crazy how they're both facing off like we saw at the end of the last chapter, and then boom, they all instantly disappear, and the next panel they're just going at it, and Samura does what he wasn't able to do before, which is at least get him to spill some blood, even if it was just like a cut across the cheek or whatever.
It's something.
It's something,
he was untouchable before, even with like him using like that flame domain of Suzaku and all that. Yeah, for sure. It's thinking about like how Samura challenged Uruha with a normal sword, like he respected him and challenged him on fair ground, and he beat Uruha, right? And like now, I mean, obviously they're both wielding their enchanted blades, but I'm wondering, I would like to see how big the skill gap is in swordsmanship, like with them like 100% using normal swords. Like I would love to see like a flashback of them like going all out sparring against each other or some shit like that,
Ooh, bro, it would be so cool if we get that sort of thing next chapter, because they do talk a little bit about that. They have some nice back and forth here. There is a little bit of like there's a bit of just like conversation that kind of hints on their past and like what that relationship kind of looked like when they were both kind of in the trenches and becoming like better sword bearers. We get the whole thing, and I don't want to jump all over the place, but for Akamura Soga, like every battle was more like an execution, right? So yeah, we'll get to it, but I would definitely be down to see some of that, man, what you're saying.
Yeah, and there's respect there between, it's a mutual respect they have for each other as like swordsmen, it's just their ideologies differ, and obviously, we know that they stand on opposing sides. Soga doesn't necessarily, like the fact that he calls Samura Mr. Samura, he's always retained that level of respect for Samura, and he doesn't have to. You know what I mean? It could just be he's very traditional and Samura's older than him. Maybe that's, it could just be that. But it's the fact that he still retains that level of respect for Samura. And we know like Samura does respect Soga's ability. So I did like the way this was executed. I didn't want this to be a very long, drawn out fight. I thought that would kind of defeat the purpose to some extent. But one thing I would like to go back and kind of touch on is Chihiro's getting, realizing what Samura's doing, and this is gonna definitely mess with Chihiro going forward, that even though he has intent, it's because he's weak as a swordsman, he failed. So, he's gonna carry this with him, and he's gonna shoulder the blame and, carry this forward. That's his fault that Samura had to make this like ultimate sacrifice. But that's just also Chihiro being really hard on himself, because Samura's a swordmaster for like longer than Chihiro's been alive, and he can't contend with Soga. So, Chihiro shouldn't really and I mean, obviously it's main character syndrome, but it's understandable for Chihiro not to be ready for this stage yet.
Dude, 100%. And it's also like the story re-emphasizing, because it's done it before, like we got a little bit of that, just a little bit with like the stuff with Kaguri and the conversations of like, okay, like you still have a lot of progress to make as a swordsman. And this is kind of like harking back to that, but just on a whole nother level, and just emphasizing the amount of growth that he needs to go through to reach Soga if he is to like accomplish his mission. And again, we talked about like Samura and Soga going back and forth. What would a pure sword battle between the two look like? Soga even says, just like the old days, after we get that line about the sword battles feeling more like an execution for him. So yeah, there's a lot of respect between them, but I can imagine that there was a lot of that there was some sort of rivalry, right? At the end of the day, we're talking about the top two sword bearers, potentially the top two swordsmen overall, especially if we're not counting Itsuo, Shirikai. So yeah, I do wonder what that looked like, and it is cool to kind of see this battle, because they must have duked it out a dozen times. And not only that, we jump, and I'll let you kind of touch on this, but we see like still, right? We might not see that flashback that you're talking about. We might not really see, especially if this is it for Samura. We might not ever see that pure swordsman battle, that pure swords fight. I think this might be the closest thing we'll get to it, because ultimately, if their powers are canceling out, we even get the piece of narration that states that ultimately this is what we're seeing, is just two swordsmen, right? And again, I don't want to kind of jump all over the place in the chapter. There is still some stuff to talk about, but it is cool how we get like a reference, or the first time that we see this since Chihiro and Sojo talked, that it was like in a separate space, realm, whatever you want to call it. I think it's the first time we see that sort of thing again, and now between Samura and Soga. I'll let you kind of get into that.
Yeah, and I think that plays on, because initially, and it still could be something that's like the true realm enables them to like share this experience, because we've only seen enchanted blade wielders experience this, really. Sojo and Chihiro, or it could just be a shonen mechanic where like when two people are putting their life on the line, they reach a level of understanding with each other, to where they can communicate without words, and that's what kind of is like happening. They're communicating without words. They're letting, kind of how like Naruto, you see that in Naruto a lot. Yeah. Where they're just, he's kind of just telling him like what he sees in Chihiro, and like you're looking at him all wrong. You're judging him by your scale, but he was like trained to be just a swordsmith, for his first 15 years of his life, while you were already on your way becoming a master by the time you were 18. Chihiro's just now like 18, or about to be 18, somewhere around there, and his journey is just starting. And like you mentioned about how he's grown like from Kaguri. Thinking back when he fought Kaguri, he was using the AI White Purity style just based off of like seeing just like an example of his like an image of it in his mind. Now he's like basically I don't want to call him like a master like Samura level, but he is proficient AI White Purity style. He can successfully use AI White Purity style, you know what I mean? And look at the leaps and bounds that he has grown as like a fighter since when he fought Kaguri to like where he's at now. Like two very different individuals on a battlefield. And I mean, that was 50 chapters ago. You know what I mean? It's so like Chihiro's growth is almost like, it's almost infinitesimal the way it's like kind of portrayed. You know, those Rakuhiro eyes, and we'll touch on that a little later. He just has all the pieces, parts, and like, you know, Enten doesn't seem like the most glamorous enchanted blade, but that's because it's a product of, it's a different product of Kunishige. Enten looks glorious in Chihiro's hands, and you know, it's going to grow with him, and he's going to grow with Enten. So like all these experiences, when we get to the last battle, you know, we're going to remember moments like this. We're going to remember all these like these down moments for Chihiro, you know, things that he holds against himself. But ultimately, it's like the experiences he goes through is his strength, really. Like, you know, we talked a little bit about like the Rakuhiro eyes bailing him out with like Yori, showing him how to properly, you know, use like a more textbook, easier to follow like example of the DIY purity style. Like Chihiro puts himself, you know, because of the person he is, he puts himself in these positions to like make himself stronger just by the like virtue of him being a good person, him doing the right thing, him fighting for the right side. You know, so I think it's like a nice one of those things where his like growth is, you know, directly related to his like growth as a person, you know, as his growth as a fighter.
Yeah, dude, because like that's even what he proved to Samura as well, right? And again, it's all led up to this moment. I mean, Soga tells Samura that he's the last bastion, and I do like how we get a callback to like the fact that Samura's betting on the future. He said it more than once, and Soga like treats that line as a joke. He's like, what are you struggling for? You're betting on the future, right? And we even see the word future is like highlighted. And I do like how Samura is just standing up for Chihiro, especially after everything that we saw them go through, right? And yeah, man, it just really hits, especially like the scene of Chihiro. You know, it's like that one flashback that we saw way back in the Swordbearer's assassination arc of when Chihiro or Shiba and Samura were talking and seeing Chihiro do his thing, practicing his sword play. So just that whole moment I thought was really good. And yeah, man, I would love to see, like, whether it's in the Seitei War arc or whatever it ends up being, I would love to see more between Soga and Samura and just all the enchanted blade bearers in general. But yeah, man, you're totally on point with Chihiro for sure.
You talked about like one thing, and you know, like the fact that the mental like space that they are talking in is the very first moment Chihiro takes a swing of a sword. It's his, you know, as a swordsman, that's Chihiro's start of his journey. Is that very first swing that Samura showed him. You know, Samura is going to help, even though this might be Samura, you know, I mean, I'll just say, I think Samura, you know, basically died, like at the very end of this chapter. And I mean, that's just not me hating. I just genuinely think that's what happened. But I think even that being said, though, you know, he showed Chihiro how to swing the sword, his first sword swing. And, you know, Chihiro was noticeably better after he showed him. And, you know, it's going to be burnt in Chihiro's brain that Samura's still going to like lead by example and give him the mental imagery and the memory he needs to help him overcome Soga later in the story. So it's like, this is his first, and then his last sword swing that he shows Chihiro will forever be scarred into Chihiro's brain.
Oh wow, bro. You're cooking, because I hadn't really thought about it like that, and it adds so much to that line where he says in every way he's just getting started, especially if like that whole place they're in was kind of like you know, representing Chihiro's first swing with the sword.
That was 3 years ago.
Yeah, dude, and it's also like Samura was the hero that kind of inspired Chihiro, right? Like he wanted to be just like him. And it's kind of crazy that it's Samura you know, in Chihiro's hero having the conversation with Soga after all we saw from like Yura and that whole hero conversation. Yeah, it adds a lot to this scene. This is probably like, if not my favorite scene of this chapter, like it's up there, right, with that double spread that kind of follows of Samura and Soga. Yeah, this chapter just hits, man.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's one of like anytime we get we see any paneling of Chihiro as a 15-year-old, or just, you know, anytime a flashback of Chihiro as a child, those like Hokuzono's just managed to like deliver a story that inherently resonates on page when we see Chihiro as a child, because we know what's like who he is as a person now compared to who he was as a child swinging that sword. That's a child swinging a sword with like no thought of like becoming a swordsman, or no thought of like trying to like you know, kill the Hishaku, really. You know, he's a whole different person now, and you know, that's like the start of his journey, obviously. But it's just seeing Chihiro, like, that's one thing. When we see Kunishige pop up in the story, even if it's just one quick panel, that page always seems a bit heavier. When we see Chihiro as a child, it always seems a bit heavier, you know. And I think that's just like a testament to like Hokuzono giving us characters to truly care about their journey. You know, maybe you might not be sold on them completely yet, which is okay. You know, sometimes certain characters aren't for everybody. You know, like, I know you like Chihiro, but you don't love Chihiro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know you think he's a good MC and all that. But like, for me, Chihiro moves me more than like, say he moves you, which, you know, is fine. But like, I also know that you do realize of Chihiro's potential. The room for potential is there. The growth is there for Chihiro. And the only reason why you could feel that way is because Hokuzono has given us a baseline of a young man that we care about his journey.
Dude, yeah, 100%. And he's consistently doing things like what we just saw in this chapter. It's the reason I think those panels of Kunishige and young Chihiro hit is because Hokuzono he doesn't like use it as like a cheap trick to kind of tug at your heartstrings or anything. Every time, or at least more often than not, that he kind of goes back to those panels or that sort of presentation, he's either recontextualizing something within the story or adding to it. And it just, we can't help, as readers, we can't help but like go back and see that and have like another wrinkle added to the puzzle, or like the whole thing, right? I mean, there's still so much. We say it every single week, right? There's discussions of this with every single chapter that comes out. There's more of the Seitei War that we just don't know. And we've got like significant like lore drops here and there, but I'm willing to bet that there is so much more we just don't know that will continue to recontextualize who Kunishige is as a man, who these sword bearers were back in their prime, and how Chihiro came up. And you know, even most recently, we saw that when we got that flashback of Chihiro being with Shiba and Azami after his father died, and we see a little bit of that personality shine through of it being more than revenge. Of course, there's this kind of, because I forgot, that chapter was, there was something, that was the same chapter that we get the lore on the barrier vessel. And I remember the chapter name, even though I can't recall it right now. I remember the chapter name was like a play on like liars or lying, because that's what the barrier vessel did when he was doing it for, I think he was doing it for the money or something like that. And it can also be interpreted that Chihiro knew also how to like, and again, this is all like left up to interpretation. You don't exactly have to see it like this. But the point I'm trying to make is that Chihiro was like very resolved since he was young. Since his father was murdered, he knew what he wanted to do. Whether it was purely revenge or there was more to it all the way back then, it's still constantly like we see that constant development for him. And I've always said this, like, I just think the best from Chihiro is yet to come. And we consistently get closer to that, I think. I mean, you brought up the Rokuhira eyes, and we'll talk about that. So yeah, man, Hokuzono's just done a very good job of like little by little building this story up and its characters, and only give us information that's relevant to the moment. And I look forward to how he continues to do that, man.
Yeah, I think you kind of like hit the nail on the head. Like, whenever he does show like Kunishige or like a Chihiro flashback, it's just like further recontextualizing something or adding to like the thematics, because it would be very easy, and I think like writers often do this, where they'll rely on a certain character dynamic to carry certain moments, and then it kind of like makes it a beat, it kind of like cheaps out the experience, you know what I mean? It's like,
oh yeah,
when you're not using it sparingly and it's not handled well, like you just don't really, it doesn't like stick out as much, talking back to chapter 101, I went to go pull it up. He says, revenge? No, I just want to fight together for what my dad believed in. This a 15-year-old kid who just lost, like his life got turned upside down. But I think the whole thing with like Kunishige was always Kunishige most likely knew he was gonna, someone was gonna come retaliate. So he raised his son to have like these strong moral character and these like ideals and values to like, center him in an imperfect world, or like ground him as best he could for what challenges might come for him. And Chihiro can only be this person because of who Kunishige is, because it was only Chihiro and Kunishige for 15 years. Like, sure, Shiba popped in every now and again, but Chihiro is purely a product of his environment with Kunishige. You know what I mean? So like if people like have these doubts on Kunishige or still like question him, a father cannot raise someone like Chihiro was raised out of pure love. He's a good person because of how Kunishige raised him. Kunishige isn't trying to be like this, like his decisions were always the correct ones. He even told him, that was my answer for justice at the moment. You will have a different answer for justice. He even prepared him for that. So like, I think like these stories and this dynamic, like the more we see Soga kind of peel back certain layers or dynamics with other characters in the story, or information about the war, or just like the state of the world, Kunishige, it's the fact that Kunishige, no one knows the actual Kunishige more than Chihiro. You know what I mean? Chihiro knows Kunishige better than anybody because he spent those last days with him. So I think that father son dynamic, I think, was handled really well. I mean, this chapter just in general, like I think there's like a lot of like context within the panels. There's a lot of panels of eyes. There's a lot of expressive emotions through Chihiro's eyes. Okazono just delivered like a solid chapter, really, and he's just continuously doing it. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, man. I have nothing to add in terms of that because I wholeheartedly agree with that.
And I mean, people thought Samura was gonna push. Soga back down in the pit to bring back Yura.
I don't know about that.
I was like, look, Samura was showing out, but even at the strongest output of Toby Mun, he was still just in on an even fight, swordsman versus swordsman, and we know Samura like I said earlier, no one's built like to meet Soga on that stage. Soga's he just apexes everybody. But I mean, I guess it's cool the fact that we got to see, it wasn't for naught. Like, he did save everybody. This is, I think it's a beautiful send off. And it's the fact that his output was stronger than the Magatsumi's, which is something I didn't think was possible.
Yeah, I told you I kind of rolled my eyes a bit at that, because to me, even though the answer could easily be, well, like, oh, Soga doesn't need to do the same thing, the first thing I thought of is like, what's stopping Soga from just doing the same thing? Like, maybe there's something there with Suzaku, which we know Samura has, enhanced over the last 3 years for this plan of his. But I was thinking, like, if this is something that Chihiro did by accident, basically, Samura has done it. What's stopping Soga from doing it? And so I get it. Like, you have to make it entertaining. You have to make this an actual fight. And like I said, Soga doesn't need to do it, right? He doesn't need to do it to defeat Samura here. But yeah, it is cool. It's the scenes are amazing. Samura undoing the Magatsumi's damage, like, in real time, just having that tug of war of, like, Soga pulverizes it, like Samura, like, undoes it, like, rebuilds it or whatever. That constant clash is just a sight to see, man.
And he's doing it in chanclas too, let's be real here. I mean, the man's got the grippers out fighting the Grim Reaper of the Kagurabachi verse.
Yeah, he hasn't changed those sandals once.
I know them things got a footprint on them. I know you can see the imprint of his feet. But, I mean, really, that's it. Well, I mean, we still have to talk about the last spread, or the last 2 spreads, really. I mean, this is one thing we did kind of talk a little bit about. And, I'll say my first, because you did bring up something to me that had me seeing it a different way. Like, I think it's a mixture of both, obviously, that's playing into it, but I didn't even see it the way that you did. I'll let you talk on yours. But like, the last spread of Chihiro's, like, eyes is one of the most expressive panels that we see of Chihiro throughout the whole story. Such a up close, like, very menacing, you can tell he's shocked. And like, I think that's my first thoughts when I read the chapter was, like, he's witnessing Samura's death here, and that's like he's getting that fuel, that extra drive needing to, like, cut down Soga, which I do think that's what's happened. I mean, you even see Shiba's little like a little prairie dog popping up in that panel. But I'll let you talk on how you viewed it, because I didn't really look at it that way. But I think that after we talked a bit about it, I do think it's pretty solid.
Yeah, well, we talked about what Chihiro did with the EI White Purity style and Yori on the rooftop right before he clashed with Hirohiko, and I think we're essentially getting that same thing, just on a whole nother level. And I think that's that comes across in the paneling, right? This time it's a double spread. Like you said, Chihiro's eyes are as expressive as we've ever seen them. I mean, we even see like the lines stressing on the board of his eyes. Even Chihiro, even Shiba. Chihiro.
Oh, that Chihiro. I thought you said Chihiro, like the feminine version. Damn Chihiro.
No, even Shiba peeps it. Like, when he goes to Chihiro and he's about to teleport him away, he sees that Chihiro's kind of, his eyes are just, they're just, almost popping out of his face. And we get that double spread between Samura and Soga, which is crazy. And then we jump back to that double spread we're talking about now. And the narration is what ultimately led me, along with the way we're seeing his eyes, to arrive at the conclusion, which I did, is, this vision burns into Chihiro's eyes to prepare for next time, to destroy the Magatsumi and slay Akamura Soga. So he's just getting the blueprint right here. He's just downloading the information. We talked about, like, Samura might or might not show him something new in terms of how to take down Soga, but I think the fact that he's also seeing Soga is going to be a complete game changer. Those Rokuhira eyes, and I told you, I think a lot of people aren't going to like it. I've seen a lot of people already expressing that they don't really like it, but that's what's going to buff Chihiro all the way up to where he needs to be in this story. Like, yeah, he's going to have to work hard for it. He's going to have to put time into his swordplay. He's going to have to work on his spirit energy, his sorcery, all that with N10. But it's going to be the Rokuhira eyes, man. I can see it when we ultimately get N10 versus Magatsumi 2, because we already got, like, the first part in the last chapter, I believe, or the chapter before that. We're definitely going to get the rematch, and we're going to get a callback to this panel when Chihiro is styling on Soga. And that might be crazy to say, but yeah, man, it's just that. I think he's getting the blueprint here. He's getting the game plan. And like Shiba thinks, it's going to be for next time. Next time he's going to be ready. What N10 looks like is a whole nother conversation. You kind of touched on the Cloud Gouger theory, which I'm big on. And we still don't know if he's gonna take on Soga himself, or is he gonna be surrounded by this family he's been building essentially. So yeah, I thought this was like one of the most hype ways to end the chapter, or just one of the most hype endings to the chapters as of late to recent chapters. I think the only one I can really think of is when Samura and Chihiro pulled up on Yura. I think that was like, the
that
last
was
time.
hard.
Yeah, and so this is kind of like the hardest way to cap off a chapter since that. Because the implications, and you just know we're going to see this panel referenced over and over again when Chihiro's going crazy, man.
And how you viewed it with like the blueprint, I think like my take on it was like when you told me that, it kind of had me looking at it differently. I was just looking at it pure as like a motivational like standpoint of him getting that extra fuel of witnessing his like master, or like someone that he cares about and looks up to getting killed in front of him. But also like that blueprint, going back to that, we know like that they say they meet at the very apex of swordplay. This is giving Chihiro an example of what and the apex of swordplay looks like in this verse. So this gives him a threshold of what level he needs to be at in order for him to be like, to compete, to be on this, to like be able to fight on the same stage. So like Samura is still like showing him the way, and now is like, I think that gives Chihiro a solid goal to work towards, instead of like, oh, Chihiro just needs to keep getting stronger. I mean, obviously he still needs to keep getting stronger, and it's not going to be easy getting to that level, but at least he has a vision of what the apex looks like. So he's like, all right, that's the level I need to get to. Having a legit goal in mind is easier to work towards than like some arbitrary number that you're just making up in your head because you think that's where you need to be. I mean, obviously his goal is to get stronger than this, but at least now he knows what the apex looks like. So it's something to work towards. And, seeing Soga be, like involved, in this like apex of swordplay clash, might also give him, may draw out a slight weakness in Soga. Soga has to have some weakness. Every villain, every fighter in, these like battle series, they have a weakness, you know what I mean? Like, especially someone like Soga, who's like just intrinsically built to, be walking death. There's got to be like a catch, a catch to it. So maybe that's what he finds out here. But I think, the fact that he is getting a rock solid goal now to work towards is going to be very beneficial for him. Plus the driving hate for Soga that's going to like take Samura away from him, and, especially Yori, obviously. This will basically refuel his cup of hatred.
That's crazy. That's a good callback. I wholeheartedly agree. I think it's gonna be a combination of both things ultimately, because like seeing Samura go out like this will not be easy for him. And we've talked a lot about, like, at this point, if Samura was even gonna die, because it seems like Hokazono has been edging us for so long that we've talked about this, and you talked about it with Shiny as well. It almost started to feel recently like he's just been trolling us this whole time, especially the people that have been looking forward to his death. And we meme about it or whatever, but like on no agenda shit. Like, ultimately, like, I think Samura is just a great, like, a beautifully written tragic character in the context and world of Kagurabachi. And to me, like, just seeing him go out, with a huge sacrifice, betting on the future, is the way you like kind of, put a exclamation mark on that sort of character arc. So yeah, man,
Yeah.
It's gonna do wonders for Chihiro, and yeah, man, I can't wait to like what the aftermath of this all looks like, because Shiba being forced to like take him away, like, that's not gonna be easy, right? Like, that's not gonna be easy.
He might have to wrestle Chihiro, he might have to actually like wrestle Chihiro, like forcibly teleport him away, and Chihiro, like, I don't think Chihiro's like, he's not gonna like resent Shiba for that, because he's gonna like, Chihiro's pretty logical. You know, he's gonna understand that like it'd be all for naught if like he just rushed back into battle and died from Soga. You know what I mean? So the only thing he could do is carry on forward, like with Samura in his heart and mind, to avenge him, and give Yori a place to like a safe place to call home, in Japan for the future. Save Japan, and without this like tyrannical, absolute justice traditionalist, I think I'm all down for great characters having great conclusions, even if I may be wrong. I was wrong back, when I thought he might have got killed back at the hotel. I'm fine with being wrong, because I care more about like the story's quality, and I know you do. So like, but this right here feels like the most like beautiful conclusion for Samura, with everything we've got in this chapter, and the fact that like we see like these callbacks to how like Samura's remembering Chihiro, showing that mental space of Chihiro first swing of the sword and Yori in the back. Like, this is a beautiful death. This is, like, if there is such a like, crazy term, what a beautiful death looks like, it's this. Someone who said he was going to bet on the future and putting his money where his mouth is.
Woo.
And
yeah, man.
I mean, that's really it for me for this chapter. I think we kind of like really hit everything pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to add a little bit to that. Like, just look at that look at Samura's face when he's talking to Soga in that separate space. Like, I don't know when was the last time that I saw that sort of expression on Samura's face. Like, that soft, just like
accepting.
Yeah, man. Like, we talk a lot about like coming to terms, and a lot of characters ultimately having to do that in these kind of stories. That's what it feels like Samura has finally done. Like, he's come to terms with all that he's done, and how he's gonna go about what's the word? Kind of like paying for his sins, I get it, or making up for his sins is more accurate. And like you said, man, he's betting it all on the future and sacrificing himself for it. What I look forward to now is not just how do they regroup. I mean, we got a little bit of that in like Shiba's thoughts last chapter, in terms of the characters that we can look forward to as part of like Chihiro's new clique, or the force that's ultimately going to push back against Soga. But also like Yori now playing into that. I mean, we didn't see her because, yeah, she really isn't considered a fighter at this point, even though we know she got sword skills. So seeing her in this chapter like gets me to think, like, how's that dynamic now going to look like? How is Chihiro going to deal with somebody who is now dealing with the same thing he went through? And I think we talked about this way back. It's been a minute, but I can even see a situation where Yori gets mad at Chihiro, and just like as a phase of grief, And again, we're just kind of like theorizing at this point. Like you said, we really went over the most important beats of this chapter. The rest is just kind of like seeing where we go from here. I do want to also talk about like the whole cloud gouger theory in a bit, but yeah, man, I'm looking forward to like how Yori's character arc takes off from here, because that is something I expect. She was set up as this also like very well-rounded character, among the best written, up there with Samura. Like, their stories are tied, right? So I would expect that just like how Hokuzono was able to juggle the stories of like Uruha and how that connects to Natsuki, but how it plays into like Samura's resolve and Yori's whole thing. Like, I am expecting Hokuzono to keep that trend in now building Yori's story off like the sacrifice that we're about to see with Samura. So I do have high expectations with her as a character, whether Toby Mun gets destroyed, and because there's been a lot of conversations about like Yori Mune. Is somebody even gonna like pick up Toby Mun afterwards? Is it gonna be destroyed? We didn't really touch on this, but you and me talked yesterday about how we both think that Samura's gonna use the Black Flames to make sure he destroys Toby Mun. That might not be the case, but is still what I think is more likely to happen, because he knows that Soga.
Too.
Yeah, he knows Soga's gonna. You told me this, right? Like, Soga's gonna want to put that blade in the hands of someone else, someone who Samura most likely wouldn't want wielding that blade. And so I don't necessarily think Yori's gonna wield it, but I do expect us to see more from her as a character, as a combatant, as a driving force in the story for Chihiro's character as well. You know, we talked about this already. I think Chihiro has a lot more to learn, not just as a fighter, but also as a person. So yeah, man. And like I said, you might have something to add to that, but I also want to get your thoughts on Enten, and like you and Shiny talked a lot about a reforging arc, maybe going to the mountains with Itsuo Shirikai. Does this chapter kind of change anything for you in terms of how you project the next 10, 15 chapters of Kagurabachi?
So first, I do agree with you. I think Toby Mun is going to break here, you know, and I like you already touched on. I don't think Soga wants to break Toby Mun because he wants to implement the enchanted blades to protect Japan, but it'd be like Samura's last, move is to make sure that he gets rid of it somehow, or he burns it out. You know, like we still don't know exactly what all, like how these enchanted swords technically function at their core. You know what I mean? Hokuto can introduce a lot of things at the drop of a hat with the True Realm, and Samura is also very in touch with his sword as well. But I do think Toby Mun ends here. You know, so that's how they get rid of that. Technically, Cloud Gouger, like I think the most people are gonna like assign to the theory that Cloud Gouger will be reforged into Enten, you know, which is, you know, I'm fine with that myself. You know, I guess it'll I'm wondering how that's gonna play out, because, you know, Chihiro hasn't really like forged, you know, swords or even touched or thought about it in 3 years, but he does have a lot of experience making swords every day with Kunishige. And, you know, he has the raw material in Datanseki with the Cloud Gouger tip and, you know, the Enten that he has. So that does seem likely. And as far as like Yori as a character, I'm almost wondering if she's not really going to be in the story as much going forward. Because like at the end of the day, she's still just a schoolgirl who's she just rekindled with her father, and she's about to lose him. You know, that's very, not saying that, you know, she could have the drive like Chihiro had, but I think it's also a very different setup, you know, where Yori just kind of got her father back. It's like this like raw emotion, and then him dying, you know, she might just kind of crack. You know, not saying she can't come back later, but I don't think she's gonna be a mainstay in the series. Like she might pull up in another arc just when we need help, you know, and, you know, she's just wielding a normal sword, because she also doesn't want to kill either. And when you're fighting someone like Soga, you're gonna have to kill. And I'm not saying that like this could drive Yori for that, but I'm sorry, but I cannot picture, if Toby Mun doesn't break, I don't see how anyone will be able to take it from Soga, because without anyone that pops up in front of Soga and tries to grab that sword, he's just gonna instantly kill him, you know, the dude's too dangerous to try and like pull a quick one on like that. You know, even Shiba hasn't, you know, tried to like teleport near Soga. He's very mindful to like keep his distance, and just how volatile Soga is, like in his power. So like, and it's almost like that blade is too crazy for the villains to have, because then they could just keep an eye on Chihiro and they'll know where he's at all times. You know what I mean? So it just feels like that sword has to like exit the story. I do think the whole point of the story is for Chihiro to get rid of the enchanted blades, or by the end of the story, the enchanted blades are no more. You know, and that's his like answer for the justice. That's me personally. So like it would make sense to get rid of this blade, Toby Mun, get rid of it now. You know, and it's like blaze of glory. And then from here, it is more about like Chihiro going into another training arc. Most likely touching base with Hiyuki, him and Hiyuki maybe like sparring with each other, going with Itsuo Shirikai. You know, there's the other two sword bearers. Unfortunately, the Hishaku has those swords. So it's not like and most of the sword bearers from the past, they weren't really like hyped to like get involved in the skirmish right away either. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to see how that dynamic's going to be, how the old sword bearers are going to interact with Chihiro, and to what level are they going to contribute to Chihiro's experience, you know, because Chihiro learns from everyone he meets. But Hiyuki and Chihiro going with Natsuki and Kiri to the mountain to train with Iso Shirikai might be like the thing they all need to get up in power level.
I'm very interested in like what the pace is gonna look like, especially if something like that goes down. Kagurabachi's like known, especially for like the last I don't know how many chapters, right? Like a very, very high pace, and it's more often than not it's worked to the benefit of the story in general, and you know, the perception and all these awesome moments, and embedded in those moments like very, very good writing. So I do wonder if we're gonna see now like things slow down a bit for the sake of like just to set up for another you know, large or long stretch of chapters where the pace kind of gets amped up again. I really am wondering.
I agree to that.
Yeah,
I would like a slower pace, just kind of give us like three to 5 chapters to just kind of like sit in the aftermath.
Yeah, that would be that.
And then like start from there to like rebuild.
And that would really work because there's a lot of kind of aftermath to go through. I mean, the aftermath of Yura being gone with the Hishaku, the aftermath of the assault on Kamunabi HQ, right? I mean, we're seeing like tidbits of that, where like Samura undoing the flowers, like you talked about, but just the overall aftermath of the Kamunabi. Are they done? You know, how are they going to react now that Soga's just out and about?
Kazan and Soga might dap each other up.
Oh, please.
I've been waiting for you to come back, homie.
Ain't no way Kazan's alive. I swear, if he's alive, if a zombie didn't one tap him, I'm gonna... I hope
motherfucker might be just stuck to the wall.
I hope he bled out, bruh. Honestly. I mean, Soga said he was, you know, he asked Izaru for the names of the Kamunabi that didn't side with him, so what's he gonna do with the other half? Yeah, is a lot of questions, but ultimately I don't see how Chihiro and company can avoid like having to retreat and like go away, far away. I mean, again, we don't know what's gonna happen to Soga, and maybe he's the one to kind of retreat somehow, some way, for some reason, if he decides to search for the other bearers. I don't know, right? There's definitely a lot of, like I said, a lot of questions. But I think I agree with you. I would like to see Hokazono kind of slow things down and just kind of linger on the aftermath a little bit, especially if Samura dies. You know, Yori, and there's just a lot. There really is a lot. And
yeah, let us sit with that.
Yeah, I think that would work.
Let's not jump to the next arc. You know, let's not just instantly go to the rebuild arc.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, but anything else you want to add?
I did make a mistake when talking about chapter 101. I could have sworn that that chapter was like a play on something about being a liar. I guess it was just what's it called? One of those false memories, of Mandela effect or whatever.
That was well, no, because you weren't. I think you just had the title of the chapter like wrong, but you were right about Chihiro's words saying like he doesn't want just revenge. He wants to fight together for what my dad believed in. So you were right with that part. Yeah,
because I was the whole thing I was trying to touch on was I saw a lot of talk on Twitter. Obviously, I don't remember now who was it that kind of brought this up, but I do remember people kind of bringing up this idea that just like, you know, a theme in that chapter is the fact that I talked about this, that the barrier vessel kind of lied about what his mission and his reason for doing things was. And, I must have thought or falsely remembered that the chapter name was like a play on that, because it can be interpreted that Chihiro might have done the same thing to kind of get his way. But yeah, like I said, that's open to interpretation. It's more headcanon than everything. And yeah, Chihiro's Chihiro. He's going to continue to do his thing. And I'm happy to be back, man. Looking forward to next week. There is a chapter next week, right?
It's good to have you back, and I believe so. I'll let me double check. I always forget to like check. Yeah, chapter on the 8th.
Okay. Should be a good one.
All right, well, we'll see y'all next week. Dice, good to have you back, brother.
Yes, sir.
Good episode. Y'all make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to pay Shiny a visit for helping us out the past 2 weeks. And we'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Peace.